Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. We are on the cusp, on the precipice of the 2021 NFL training camp kicking off tomorrow. All teams, well, most teams, if not all, will be in the building by today. Practices for most teams, some teams have already started, will begin tomorrow. I hope you guys are jacked. I'm excited for the 2021 season. I'm excited, for our Philadelphia Eagles, as well as the rest of the NFL, seeing all the changes that have gone on, just to see what the year is going to look like. For me, here, and the first half of the show, my good friend Adam Kaplan is going to come on, and we're going to talk some Eagles. We're going to also talk the rest of the NFL. The second half of the show, I'm throwing these questions out here to you guys now because I want you guys to come back later on after Adam's gone, and let's toss these around. Here is my top 5 things I want to observe from the Eagles during training camp. Most importantly, I want to observe, one, the offensive and defensive schemes. Up until this point, we have no idea what these teams are going to look like. I think some of the media has kind of gotten a glimpse, but to really see it and understand what it is that Nick Sirianni and Gannon and all his coaches, what it is that they're going to do and what this team is going to look like, because it always begins and ends in the trenches. Number 2, Jalen Hurts' progression in year 2. Listen, there's a lot of naysayers out there. I don't think anybody really knows what this kid is or what he's going to be over time. But I'm curious to see if he takes the next step in an extended role in a position where he's not necessarily looking over his shoulder, in a situation where he has the confidence of the team and the coaching staff to a point to where he can actually earn it. Third, offensive and defensive line competitions. This is huge for me. On the defensive side, I don't really see much of a competition. I think we're pretty much set there, unless there's some injuries. But on the offensive line, it can get pretty interesting. I think if Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks can stay healthy, Jason Kelsey is always healthy. I think we've got some intriguing competitions over on the left side. Andre Dillard versus Jordan Mailata. Even though Isaac Seumalo is locked in as a starter coming out of next year, I think it would behoove the Philadelphia Eagles to create competition at the left guard position with Landon Dickerson if and when he's ready to go. 4, how does the addition of a Pro Bowl cornerback in Steven Nelson improve the defense? More importantly, how does it improve a secondary that has been much mismaligned for quite some time? And lastly, I'm going to be watching because I want to see how Nick Sirianni as a head coach evolves from the preseason into the regular season. And how he motivates and deals with his players when the dog days of summer, when the dog days of training camp hit, and guys just don't feel like, putting out the work and putting out the effort. He is a competition guy. So I had the feeling that he's going to always keep his finger on the pulse of what's going on. But I want to see if he can consistently do that. I want to see if the players get to a point where they actually buy into everything that he's selling. And those are my top 5. We'll come back and we'll discuss those later. But right now, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Adam Kaplan. I've been knowing this guy for a long time and one of the best in the business. Adam, how you doing, my friend?
Good to talk to you, my friend. It was good to see you at the golf event in Hershey. And what a story you told, by the way, for folks who don't know, and how you started your playing golf is really a testament of your will. And I took some from that, our little talk about that. I was just curious why you started to play golf, and it kind of reminded me of why I started playing tennis. I wanted to see if I can do it, and it's just sort of a metaphor for life. If you're willing to go try something once, worst you can do is you decide you don't like it, and that's kind of what you were talking about. So that was a fun talk that we had.
No doubt about it. And right now it's like golf fulfills that competitive edge that never goes away. When you retire as an actual, player, it never goes away. The competition is there, whether I'm playing with my friends and, like I was with Keith Byers and Clyde Simmons this weekend. We were in Tennessee and Nashville, Eddie George's golf tournament. It's the first time we've been together, in a setting like that for quite some time. So we go out and we play and we come back and people are like, hey, who won? We don't play like that. Us three guys, we just go out and we play golf and we enjoy ourselves. Now, I got some friends that I play with that I'm trying to take their 401k. But for the most part, it's the competitive nature of it, Adam, and your ability to go out and test yourself all the time is the thing that I find most intriguing about golf. There are times where you play really well, and I can shoot right there maybe 1 or 2 under par, and I can be 12 to 15 or over par. And that's the frustrating thing, because on the football field, I know what I can do, or I knew what I could do.
Right.
And golf is different. It's not just for me, it's for everybody. When you look at even the greats, they go through these roller coaster times, and it's the intrigue of trying to figure it out. It's the intrigue of trying to master something that, that pushes you in the game of golf.
Yeah. And the thing is, I heard you before we started here talk about Nick Sirianni and competition. The thing about golf to me is I don't worry about my opponent. I'm worrying about the course. It's me versus the course.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at football, it's man against man, but it's more about execution. And here's the play, run it. Don't worry about so much about your opponent. This is the way we draw it up. Believe in your coaches. And I just, the competition thing with Nick Sirianni as we get into this is, sometimes, as being an ex-player, sometimes coaches preach that, but it doesn't really turn out to be that. Mm-hmm. I do believe from the coaches I spoke with who've worked with Sirianni in the past with the Colts, for the Chargers, this is what this guy's all about. I look forward to seeing it.
Well, I'll say this. I think it's the most efficient way to build a football team. It's the most fair way to build a football team. When you hear people talk about the meritocracy of football that it is, I mean, let's be honest, there are some positions and there are some draft positions that quite honestly, doesn't get the meritocracy or, doesn't get the fairness that most positions do. But I think it's just, it behooves him in a situation where everyone thinks that they're rebuilding to create the type of competition where everybody knows that, hey, there's an opportunity for me to start. And if I'm not starting, there's an opportunity for me to get significant playing time. Because let's be honest, very few players besides the offensive line play more than 50, 55 plays a game. So there's an opportunity to get significant playing time if guys are smart enough to do what's necessary to garner some of that, even if they're not a starter. So I love it. And to your point, I'm going to be watching and extremely curious to see, is this something that he continues to do all the time? Because if you compete in practice, coaches used to always say, hey, the way you practice is the way you play. The way you practice is the way you play. If you create that competition in practice, then it's going to translate, into the game. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I would say from what I understand, he's, maniacal about competition. He's a guy who'll send coaches. Let's say he's working out against a friend of his. He might send his coaches, hey, look at this, like stuff like that. This is the way the guy's been in the past. Mm-hmm. I expect that to happen here, Seth. And that's a good thing because quite frankly, not to criticize any particular coach last season, but the lack of development of these players, particularly the last couple of years with the Eagles, is definitely disappointing. Mm-hmm. The regression of this roster. Now we could argue whether these guys were taken in the draft where they should have been. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about wherever they were drafted, developing these players and hold these guys accountable. The lack of accountability the last couple of seasons has been troubling, quite frankly.
Well, in great fashion, Jimmy Allen's a smart ass. He starts off right now and he says, so if Flacco outplays Hurts, does he start? Hey, if you're living on competition, if that's the word that you're preaching and that's the culture that you're building, you really have no other choice if Joe Flacco outperforms Jalen Hurts than to start him. You cannot send that mixed message. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think Joe Flacco's ever going to be in a position, to really outcompete Jalen Hurts. That's, to me, where it really comes down. Your thoughts?
Well, I would hope for the Eagles' sake that you're right, that let's put it this way. If Flacco's doing great. That's exactly what they want. They want competition. Mm-hmm. They want Flacco to push Jalen Hurts. And that's kind of why I think Sirianni didn't name Hurts the starter. Yes. Do we all expect Hurts to start? 100%. There's no reason to think that he wouldn't. However, with a caveat, if Flacco tears it up, and I don't talk to someone close to him, I mean, he He hasn't felt this good in years. He was coming off of neck surgery last year. He didn't even get to work with the Jets players until like the 4th week of the regular season, so that set him back a little bit. But now he's healthy. We know about his arm strength, but he's in the twilight of his career. He's seen as a pretty good backup. The Eagles need to evaluate Hurts this season. There's no question about it. And then you've got the other issue, which is out there, and it's true. I mean, the Eagles have really sincere interest in Deshaun Watson. They've been following the situation really since Carson Wentz was traded, Seth. And you've seen reports out there. Jeff Mosher and I on Inside the Birds have reported it. We've talked about it. They've been monitoring it. They've not backed off. So we'll see what happens. It's yet another saga to this quarterback situation with your Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, Adam, I know that you're close to the team, so I'm not asking you to say anything more than what you can say. I want to pause right there because a lot of people out there feel like, this is the most craziest thing that I've ever heard. Why would the Eagles be interested in Deshaun Watson? That's the first thing. The second thing is the legitimacy of it, because there's a bunch of people that's like, that's just, Adam Schefter throwing, stuff against the wall, trying to get something to stick. But he said it. You've kind of said it. You and Jeff have been monitoring the behind the scenes situation. I mean, I think that my my viewers really want to know, is there really some legitimacy to this?
Oh, 100%. There absolutely is. I'm not a big flamethrower. I don't put stuff out there unless I know something. Jeff and I have been on this since, I'm going to say within a week after Wentz was traded. We put out stuff on Wentz and the Colts and the Bears. We were first to report. Week before the Wentz was traded, the Bears dropped out. I mean, we've been on this thing, the quarterback thing. It's, as you know, and I know you're a defensive player. I get it. But the heartbeat of the football team is the quarterback, and it's the most important position on the football team. Sorry for those of you who like defense. I get it, but it is. The quarterback's the highest paid player usually if a team is really good on a football team, and it's the most important. So we've been on this thing. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just think that when you don't know who your quarterback of the future is, you're still going to be looking. Deshaun Watson, now we know he's got significant legal issues. He was phenomenal last season. Let's call it like it is. As a football player, and which we're talking about right now, it was by far his best year. He was absolutely terrific. And look, the Texans, if they wound up trading him, not only would have they gotten at least 3 first-round picks if he had no off-the-field issues, they could have gotten 3 first-round picks, 2 or 3 starters. Because the guy is a top 5 quarterback right now. He's terrific, but he's got these major legal issues, major accusations about his off-the-field behavior from women, and we will see. It's a very difficult thing to sort through because there's so many things that have been thrown at him.
Let's just take the legal issues out of the picture. Is any player really worth 3 firsts? I mean,
quarterback, Seth. Let me tell you something. When you get the quarterback position right. No, I know. Now, the one thing, though, what you said is important to note here. You don't want to ruin your football team where you have no future. Like, it's one thing to get a quarterback where your quarterback is going to be for the next 7 to 10 years, and that's huge. But if you're giving up, now in this case, I don't think any team would give up 3 first-round picks because of Watson's legal issues. But if you did, you're giving up this year. For the Eagles, in the Eagles situation, they don't have 3 yet. It depends on Wentz's situation. It's most likely going to be a first-round pick next year, coming back from the Colts. So you're giving up this year you're giving up basically 3 first-round picks. In your future, you might have to give up some players too, or even in this case, I think if Watson's no one would be out of it. I just don't think you could give up because of Watson's legal issues. I don't think you could give up 3 first-round picks. But getting back to what you're saying, absolutely, based on his performance and his youth, he's still a young guy, and he came back really well from the ACL injury. He absolutely is worth 3 first-round picks, just on a talent standpoint. Okay, just from a performance standpoint, leadership, players love him. I know about the legal issues, but as you said, let's leave them aside. When you know who your quarterback is, you start building around him. But the problem is when you give up so much to get the player, how much are you going to have left in draft capital to build your football team?
Well, and that's really my point, especially as we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that the Eagles are in a unique situation because they've maneuvered and gotten themselves to a point where next year they're going to have 3 first-round draft picks. Let's just be honest about it.
Yeah, if
I
they
mean,
don't make it, yes. Most
the only
likely,
thing,
highly likely, yes.
the only thing that stops them from, having 3 first-round draft picks next year is Carson Wentz getting injured.
Correct.
That's the only thing.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Then sure. They're probably going to have upwards of $70 million in cap space where they were in cap hell this year. You mean to tell me that you're willing to sacrifice those 3 draft picks with all of that capital that you have at your disposal? I mean, they can get well like that if they can if Jalen Hurts performs the way that they think that he can perform and he's the guy, then you don't have to make that move. And you still got Jalen Hurts for another 3 years before you even talking about, paying him starter salary. If not, then yeah, you gotta try to figure something out. But understanding how important first round draft picks are and understanding that they are the foundations, of your football team. I just find it's hard to believe that I'm going to give up 3 first round draft picks for one guy, and risk not being able to build the pieces around him, and maybe they feel like they already have those pieces, because you got Rager, you got Devontae, you've got, 2 tight ends, not sure what's going to happen. That's one of my questions for you. What's going on with Ertz? And I also read something, just yesterday. I fired a tweet, Goddard talking about he wants to be paid like the top 3. But my point is just being able to improve your team. I think they're in a much better position if they can hold on to the draft stock and have the availability of cap space.
I would say this: if Watson did not have the legal issues, let's say you and I were running the football team, I'd say, Seth, this is my vote. We were sharing votes 50-50. You get 1 vote and I get 1 vote. We're giving up 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. You can't find a guy like this in the draft. I want to know who our quarterback is for the next 7 to 10 years. He's it. Now, it changes now with the legal issues. That's what the Eagles or any team, the Dolphins, another team that's interested. We've known this for a while. This is not a secret. They've been on this player. But it's so hard. This legal stuff is so hard to figure out. It's a very unique – I've covered this business 21 years. It's one of the most unique situations I could remember. But, look, if it remains Hurts as the probable starter this season, I agree with you. I want to see what this kid can do. That Arizona game, I do want to mention this. If you recall, he took a safety on the first drive, which you can't do. Mm-hmm. He hung in there from a mental standpoint. Like, I would think a young quarterback would get down on himself. Man, what did I do? How did this happen? As a former player, it's tough on a young quarterback. This guy got thrown in there. He was supposed to play last season. Right. He gets thrown in there. He hangs in there and brings the team back. If the defense was so bad, they would have won that game. It wasn't his fault. He did a great job of bringing it back. So I think you could build off that. He only played just a little bit over 4 games at the 4 starts, and then the other game against Green Bay. But I think there's something there. I like that he's the coach's son. I like he's a good guy, coachable. That's all good things to build off of.
You know what I like about him? I like the adversity that he's been through, especially for a city like Philadelphia. Not everybody's built or wired to be able to play in the city of Philadelphia.
As you know.
No, listen, no doubt about it. But I feel like the things that Jalen Hurts has had to endure, and for people who don't understand it, because, I get people all the time, he quit, at Alabama because he lost his job. No, let's understand. He was the starter. They won the national championship. He comes back his sophomore year. Tua comes in and, takes over in the national championship and wins the national championship. Jalen Hurts did not leave his junior year. He actually stayed at Alabama, accepted a backup role, and actually, if it wasn't for Jalen Hurts being on the roster, Tua got hurt in the SEC championship game his junior year. He comes in, saves the day. Tua as well, down the road, he takes back over. Jalen Hurts last year, his senior year, he knows that it's Tua's team. So he makes a decision, okay, I'm going to enter the portal so that I can go somewhere and play where I can up my draft stock, as a quarterback to be able to play in the NFL. Now, to me, there's nothing at all wrong with that. Nothing at all. And he goes to, Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, to a guy who transformed him as a quarterback. Whatever it is that Steve Sarkisian or I forget the other guy. He's at Ole Miss right now. The other offensive coordinator was out. Whatever it was that they couldn't extrapolate from him, Lincoln Riley was able to do it and do it like that, because all you got to do is go back and look at his numbers his senior year at Oklahoma. he was phenomenal. So for all the people who say he can't throw, he's got a weak arm, he can't do this, he can't do that, I'm like, let's pump our brakes and see what the kid can do. That's the first thing. The second thing is he is built and wired psychologically, for anything. The kid's just got ice water running through his veins. Now he's going to make some great plays. Lane Kiffin. Thank you, Jeffrey. He's going to make some great plays. He's going to make some mistakes. But as a second-year quarterback, and with his first OTAs, with a new system and a new coaching staff, that's to be expected, So hopefully the good outweighs the bad, so on and so forth. A lot, like you said earlier, depends on, what's around him and whether they can run the football and, play action pass and, how the defense complements what they're doing. But I'm just of the belief that let's wait and see what it is this kid can do.
Yeah, look, we hopefully will get to see that opportunity. Obviously, if they don't trade for Watson, it's going to be Hurts, and this is a year to evaluate him. And I'll tell you what, one thing I do want to mention, I like this young receiver core. I've been calling this for years with the Eagles. Is like, get younger at that position with Jeffrey and Jackson. Just move on, and they've done that. In fact, they're one of only 2 NFL teams, Seth, to not have a vested veteran on the roster at the receiver position, which is a little bit of a gamble. But you know what? I'm willing to go for it. I think it's fair. Greg Ward is not technically a vested veteran, but he's been with the team off and on since 2017. So let's go for it. Let's go with these young kids and see what they can do.
Adam, I'm not that worried about it, because I think when you draft a kid like Devontae Smith, he brings a skill set with him. Whoever the wide receiver coach is at Alabama, that dude knows how to coach wide receivers. Okay, so all the skill sets that Devontae Smith has learned and garnered from being at Alabama for 3 or 4 years, whatever it is, whoever the wide receiver coach, Aaron Moorhead, he has the ability to extrapolate information from him. You can watch this kid run routes and that he's been well-versed and well-coached at the position of a wide receiver. And if you don't think that Jalen Reagor is going to go to him and have conversations, if you don't think that Travis Fulgham is going to go to him and Hightower and Quez Watkins and all these guys, that they're not going to have those conversations, sometimes, you got a veteran on the roster at wide receiver and a bunch of young guys, and it causes dissension because the old guy knows that his time is ticking. So instead of really helping the young guys grow, he's inhibiting them in ways.
And what I'd add to this is Devontae Smith is the best thing to happen for Reagor and Fulgham. Why? Smith is a type A personality in terms of receiver. Incredible work ethic. He is a serious football player. He played for Nick Saban. So him and Landon Dickerson, it's all about football. They come up with an attitude. And there's just something, I know talking to coaches, Seth, around the league about this. A first-round pick, you're supposed to know it without knowing that he was a first-round pick. When the guy walks on the field, you see him, his work ethic, how he attacks the football. In this case, it's Smith. How he handles himself, practice to practice. I'm telling you right now, that receiver room got better because Smith's in it, and I cannot wait to watch him. I'll be there Friday. I really cannot wait to see him practice.
I can't wait to see what they look like as well. Let's Adam, what's going to happen with Zach Ertz? I mean, is Zach Ertz, are the Eagles just going to keep him on the roster?
Well, he's on the roster for now. Listen, he's been available. They had talks with other teams. I think it's two things. I just don't think they've gotten the value in the return. The way it's explained to me is that they're just not going to give him away for like a 6th-round pick. That's not what they want to do. And now the other thing is Zach is making $8.5 million. Zach is, we know what he is. He's a leader. He gets open, good hands, tough guy, great for the locker room. The other issues are that is at his age. He turns 31 this fall, and he's come off of ankle surgery. You know this as a former player. Once guys get into their 30s, you do wonder, are they the same guy? Now, we won't know until we get to see him in practice at training camp. But what I'm told is he's fine coming off the surgery. So let's see how he does. And look, it's Goddard's team going for the future here. The Eagles have made it no secret. Goddard has not made any secret. Goddard wants his, he went on the record right before OTAs ended and said they're in the midst of contract negotiations to extend his contract. He's a future at the tight end position. That's why he was drafted to eventually replace Ertz, and the time is now. And that's coming. Now, for a surprise, if Zach is on the football team this fall, Goddard's going to be the main guy at tight end, whether Ertz is on the roster or not. That's just a fact.
My question is, if salary cap wise he fits, why does it hurt you to keep him rather than move on from him?
Yeah, my understanding is, it doesn't hurt them for cap wise. They're okay with his cap. All those cap numbers over 12 million, believe it or not.
Right.
Final year's deal. They're okay with it. They don't have to do anything. I kept telling people they could sign Landon Dickerson. They don't need to restructure contracts. The numbers that are out there are not correct. They have more under the cap than the NFLPH site has them listed for. But they're okay there. Now, if they trade for Deshaun Watson, it's a different story. They're going to have to clear cap space, but they're okay. Listen, if they have to have Ertz on the roster this season, they can handle his $8.5 million salary. It's just Jeff Mosher and I, Seth, to sum this up, have said this repeatedly. It just doesn't make any sense to have on the roster. It does from a depth standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, but you're turning this over to Goddard. You brought Richard Rodgers in, who's a decent backup. They like this Jack Stoll's, an undrafted free agent out of Nebraska. It's time to move on. It's time to turn the page. Send Zach to a team where he can help them get to a Super Bowl. The Eagles, okay, folks, let's be honest, they're not going to the Super Bowl this season. I don't think that's happening. I don't know that they'll win the division. So turn the page, get younger, and Goddard's the guy. That's the way I see it.
Well, let's delve a little more into that, because my thing is, you got an All-Pro tight end in Zach Ertz, who's coming off a lackluster year. Probably that ankle injury nagged him the entire year.
It did.
So it's going to be 100%. And you can handle his cap number. He makes you a better football team. He might not be able to block like Dallas Goedert, but to me, he's a more proficient receiving tight end than Goddard. Okay. There's been times, and I don't know how, the current staff feels about it, but there was times under Doug Peterson, Dallas Goedert looked lost to me, absolutely lost, and I watched a lot of games and he looked completely clueless sometimes. And he was not a major target of Carson Wentz. I don't think just because of Zach Ertz either. I think that there were some things that he was not doing properly, and Carson Wentz just made a decision. I'm not even looking that guy's way because I can't trust him. Now, if he's matured, hopefully, I get it. But if you can have Zach Ertz on this team, in my opinion, it makes your football team that much better. You create that much more stress out of 12 personnel if you have him rather than Dallas Goedert and gosh, who's the
Richard Rodgers? Yeah, Richard
Rodgers.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that you keep him. He's going to come in and play like his hair is on fire, because if he really does want to get out of here, he's going to have a halfway decent year to create the value in order for them to move him. So I don't know. I just think that they keep him. I'm not 100% sold yet on Dallas Goedert. I don't like some of the things that I'm hearing. I read somewhere yesterday, and somebody put it up, is that just clickbait? It was something that he said. The contract talks that they're talking about, he wants to be paid like a top 3 to 5 tight end. Well, top 3 tight end, you're talking about Jason Kelsey, Kittles, the kid with the Raiders. Waller.
Darren Waller. Yeah. He's an absolute stud. Yeah, he's amazing.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, all of those guys are Pro Bowl tight ends. All of those guys have 1,000-yard receiving. All of those guys have, double-digit, touchdowns. What world are we living in where you reward guys just because they say that they deserve it rather than what they've produced on the field? I got a problem with that. Now, if he didn't say it, it's a wash. But if this is something that he really said, that he's going to hold the Eagles, hold a gun to their head, that he wants to be paid, accomplish something first. I can remember back in the day, you couldn't make $1 million as a player until you went to a Pro Bowl. These guys now, they just think that they're all supposed to make 15, 16, 17 million bucks a year just for showing up.
Yeah, look, another thing though, I want to go back to what you said a couple minutes ago. Keeping Ertz on with the football team, you're almost forced to be 12 personnel majority of the time, because they led the Eagles. The Eagles led the NFL last season again in 12 personnel. you want to be more multiple, and it's not about Zach. It's just having someone who have to justify. You got to justify that salary. He's got to be on the field. I'm not saying he's going to be on the field more than Goddard if he's on the team this fall, but you're forcing the coaches to play heavy 12 personnel again, which I just don't think it's fair to these coaches. You really want to turn it over to Goddard. You got Fulgham, Rager, and Smith. You want on the field a lot, Seth. This gives you the ability to get these talented receivers on the field and get that explosiveness especially with Rager and Smith on the field. Rager, by the way, I'm told low 190s. He lost 10 pounds. He looked great, and he looked like he should have looked last year. Quite frankly, let's call it like it is. He was not in great physical shape, the shape that he needed to be in. He got the memo. He got the memo, and he looked great. So I'm expecting him to have a breakout season.
I will say this too. I left this adage off. Dallas Goedert has never really been the starting tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. Zach Ertz has been.
Yep.
Okay, so all these demands that you're making, you've never been the guy. You've never been the starter. To me, as much as Zach Ertz is in a prove-it year, I think that Dallas Goedert is in a prove-it year. What's to say? You've got the tag that you can put on him if you're going to move on from Ertz after this year anyway. Make him go out and prove it. You want to be paid like a top three to five. Go out and make the Pro Bowl. Go out and show me. Go out and prove that you're that guy. Go out and prove to me that you're better than Zach Ertz, and we can just wash our hands and move on, knowing that you're the guy.
Plus, what you can do on what you were talking about, you could just wait till like November. If Dallas Goedert doesn't get hurt, we know injuries have been an issue. If he's playing lights out, you could try to extend his contract. They've extended Alshon Jeffrey during the season. They've extended other players. It doesn't happen a lot, but it's not like it's unprecedented. They could always do that. So, look, I'll say this about the Eagles' offense: they've gotten a lot younger at these skill positions. Offensive line wise, we know they have 3 guys over 30, but I'm glad that they're getting younger, and they really needed to.
No doubt about it. I'm going to try to stay true to my promise, 30 minutes here. So I got a couple of questions, from around the NFL,
sure.
Rapid fire.
Yep.
Okay. Does Big Ben have one more run in him?
Yes, because I'm going there tomorrow. One of the reasons why I'm going to see Big Ben is because I want to see his arm. Last year they didn't throw the ball downfield much because he was coming back of reconstructive elbow surgery. But from what I understand, he's in great physical shape. The arm's back. He does, absolutely. But my issue, though, their offensive line, this might be one of the worst offensive lines they've put together in over a decade. This worries me. This does worry me. Now, they're going to have a run game in terms of making commitment to it. They took Najee Harris in the first round, so they'll be able to run the ball better theoretically, and they'll make more of a commitment to it, which will help them. But the fact of the matter is they got to get the ball downfield. Way too much. Very predictable offense. Lots of quick hitters, slants. You got to extend the ball downfield, and that they have to do it, and they will this season.
Okay, does Julio Jones make the Tennessee Titans a legitimate AFC contender?
No. You know why? Because their defense, Seth, will not be good enough. They just offensively, I think they have a chance to be terrific. Offensive line's good. Run game's unreal, as you know. The receiver core is good. They built a really good offense. Tight end's a little shaky, but defensively, coverage-wise, I'm concerned. Caleb Farley started training camp on NFI, non-football injury list. He's coming off of back surgery. He's had 2 back surgeries in his career, ACL. You worry about that. Who are your pass rushers? Now, we have to see Bud Dupree is on PUP to start training camp. He's coming off ACL reconstruction. Those are concerns of mine. Offensively, they're going to score. They're going to be great. Defensively, Seth, just not enough talent, particularly as pass rushers in the corner.
Interesting. John Gruden going into his 4th year as head coach of the Raiders. Is this a make or break year for John?
No, he's got a 10-year contract at $10 million a year. It won't be. It's for Mike Mayock. It might be over the next year, although John has personnel control. But no, it's just they got to develop it. Their defense is an absolute joke. It's been terrible. They've not drafted well. They've drafted well in offense. They haven't drafted well in defense. That's why they've been so bad on defense. It's not a coaching issue. I'll tell you what, though. They've done a good job. Like now, we'll see how well Gus Bradley does. But Ron Miles they have a D-backs coach. Ron Miles is probably the best defensive backs coach in the NFL. If Ron Miles can't get the secondary going, they won't have 5 wins this season. If this secondary isn't majorly improved, I give up on the Raiders because offensively they're going to be able to score. That will not be a problem.
Well, so then I'll ask you this: at what point in time, even though he's got the 10-year, $10 million per year, at what point in time do you pull the plug because they're not getting it done? I mean, is it year 5?
It's a fair question. I just don't know what you do because the money's guaranteed. So I don't know how you walk away from it. It's John's call on the general manager. He controls everything, personnel and coaches. So Mike is a smart guy. It's just I just think they've overdrafted certain players. It hasn't worked, but yet it's funny talking to Raider people. Mike's sort of the voice of reason for John. Now the question is though, does John listen to Mike? That I can't answer.
Interesting. Okay, who wins the NFC East?
If the Eagles don't if the Eagles trade for Watson, they're going to win it. If they don't, slight lean to the New York Football Giants.
Wow, the Giants.
Really good defense, Seth. Patrick Graham, their D coordinator, is phenomenal. He's going to be head coach for the next couple of years. And they added a lot of offense. The offensive line's got to play better, but I just believe in the kind of offseason they've had. They have good coaching. I think they're going to be good, and I think they're going to surprise people. I think they'll win that division.
What do you think the Eagles are going to do? Because I personally think the Eagles are going to be a lot better than what we expect and what people are saying. I think that if you can protect Jalen Hurts, the offensive line can stay healthy, and you can grow within the first 4 games of the season on the defensive side of the ball, because the defense always, is the last unit to come around, because you've got so much communication going on, new guys on the field, new terminology. And if you're not talking, you're lost. The offense knows what the snap count is. They know where they're going, and they know how they're trying to attack you. But I just feel like, the competition is you're going to create at the running back spot with all of those running backs that will be vying for time. And no doubt about it, Boobie Mills is the guy. But if the offensive line is healthy and you can run the football, you got these young wide receivers, that are stretching the field and making plays. You make Jalen Hurts' job that much easier. I just get the sense and I get the feeling that the Eagles are going to be in the mix for this division, by the time we get to, week 16, week 15, week 16.
My issues with the Eagles are this, and we'll leave the offense alone. We've kind of talked about it. The lack of depth at corner is going to crush them. They cannot afford one injury. They have 2 starting corners right now. They signed Steven Nelson, okay? So they can line up now at corner and be good and have Maddox in the slot. If I know it's a lot of ifs here, but this is the Eagles football team this year. You got Rodney McLeod coming back from a major injury, okay? He's an older player. We don't know if he's going to be ready week 1. We just don't have enough depth. They don't have enough depth at corner. That worries me. D-line, at D tackle, 2 starters are terrific. They don't have any depth at D tackle. They're young, but they don't have anyone who's done anything. The depth is not, just to explain myself because fans don't seem to understand this. Depth has nothing to do with how many players you have at a position. Coaches will tell you it's how many guys do I believe in that could go and get the job done. Mm-hmm. You could have just 4 guys at a position and be great with depth. If you've got 10 guys, but only 3 guys you like, your depth isn't very good. That's the bottom line.
Well, listen, they're going to have 5 guys at the defensive line, at the defensive tackle position. You've got the 2 young draftees. You got Cox and Hargrave.
They've never played, though. Young kids have never played. We'll see.
No doubt about it. And you got Ridgeway, who is a run stopper more than anything else.
And he's been hurt a lot, too, which is unfortunate. Yeah. He's talented, but he's been hurt a lot.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And last but not least, I could not end your time here with at least one dig at the Cowboys. Will Jeff
will
he figure out a way to mess it up again?
I'll say this about Jerry Jones. One of the best things he's done for the most part in recent years to stay out of free agency. It's been mostly they draft pretty well. The coaching has been less than stellar. Mm-hmm. We'll see how Dan Quinn does. They're going from a 34 to a 43. But they don't have a lot of depth on D-line. Their offense is going to be terrific with Prescott back, the 2 tackles back. Mari Cooper will be back relatively soon from his foot surgery. But I don't worry about their offense. Their defense concerns me. Their D-line in particular. They're going to be really good at linebacker, really good in the secondary, a little bit shaky at safety, but really good at corner. My problem with them is their D-line. I think the Eagles' D-line, by the way, is going to be way better than the Cowboys. But offensively, they're going to be able to score. Dak Prescott, before he broke his ankle and dislocated it, was on. He was going to set a team record for touchdowns. He was incredible before he got hurt.
Well, I will say this: I'm not a fan of the transition to Dan Quinn as that's a good thing if you're an Eagles fan from my perspective. He had the Legion of Boom. He became the head coach in Atlanta. He tried to recreate it, but you got all of these undersized guys. You play this cover 3 shell that everybody knows that you're playing. They know how to defend you or offense you, I should say. Now you're taking over a under-talented Dallas Cowboys defense with a passive mindset. I don't like that mixture. And for Eagles fans, it's the greatest thing in the world.
I look forward to seeing that because the Eagles will be stretched. Their corners, Dallas is going to be a heavy 11 personnel team because of Cooper, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. It doesn't really bode well for the Eagles, but if Nelson and Slay and Maddox all stay healthy, at least they're starting 3 corners because the Eagles will be a heavy nickel team. They're going to be fine. They just cannot afford an injury. And before we get out of here, the thing is, and people keep asking me this, I don't have an answer why the Eagles have been so decimated by injury over the last 4 seasons. I don't have an answer for it. They've changed medical staffs 3 times. They feel really good about this medical staff, training staff. At some point, they got to stay on the field, but who knows?
Well, I just think they need to ramp up practices a little bit and be a little more physical. I understand why the rules have changed. I understand why they do what they want to do, but a lot of these things are things that the players want. And the thing I know about what players want is the players want the easiest path that they could possibly get, which isn't necessarily the best path for them. As a former player, I speak that, and as a guy who's sitting back watching all of this, I know this, that you've got to ramp up your practices and be a lot more physical so that when you get to the regular season, that your body is ready and prepared and calloused for the regular season.
Well, we'll see. And it's interesting you bring that up because I'm really interested to see when I go on Friday's practice, the tempo of practice. It's not so much hitting; it's the tempo, the urgency. One of the things that bothers me, Seth, when I go to these practices, I've been going to practice for 20 years. Too much. There's a lot of standing around. I want station to station to station. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Lack of urgency. I don't want. There's one head coach that just would bother me. The guy turned out to be an awful head coach. Part of it's because there's no urgency.
Right.
You got to have that. You know that as a former player. You can't be standing around all day. And the practices now are much shorter anyway. There's no excuse for that stuff. But I must run. I got another interview. But good talking to you, my friend. And I enjoyed it. This is good, man. This is good.
Appreciate your time. As always, my friend.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good one. All right. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Kaplan joins us talking some birds on the cusp of training camp 2021 starting. So I'm going to go back to the top here and take some of you guys' questions one by one. Let me find my buddy here that got, his feelings a little hurt. I think it was Jimmy Allen, but right there. Hey, Jimmy, don't worry about it. I call you a smart ass, but it's all good. You're still one of my dogs, all right? Let's see. The best players show. Let's see. Billy Covington wants to know, do you think that the running game on this team can get better? And if so, will that help them improve their overall team performance and record? Billy, absolutely. The first thing about running the football is the commitment to run the football. Under Doug Peterson, there wasn't very much commitment to run the ball. Now, in light of some of the things that we've heard, we don't know whether that's because, Jeffrey Lurie and Howard Roseman was in his ear, forcing him to run the ball, throw the ball more than he necessarily wanted to. But I've seen times where, if the run game didn't click within the first 2 series of the game, we went to, a predominant pass-heavy offense. That doesn't bode well, for a young quarterback going into his second year, learning a whole nother system with, a lot of new players in front of him. So if they can commit to the run game, I believe that Jalen Hurts, can have a much better year. You got to allow him the time to grow. And, like I just talked about with Adam, I just feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a much better football team than most people, believe that they're going to be. That remains to be seen, but hey, it is what it is. Jay Cox, do you think Sirianni will keep these defenses on their toes with setting plays up with other plays? That's an interesting question, Jay, because I've always been one to believe that, offenses need to be coordinated. when you do something well, you go back to it. That's the reason why, you have a first 15, and the success of those first 15 kind of dictate which direction you go in with the rest of your play calling. Now, you may have 15 plays, but that means that you've got another 30 plays off of those 15 plays, because for every run play, you got 2 pass plays. For every pass play, you got 2 run plays that come from that same offensive set, that comes from that same formation that looks the same, because you're trying to entice the defense to believe that you're going to run that running play or that pass play that you ran before, and now you catch them off guard with a run play or a pass play. That, to me, that's offensive coordination. I'll be really watching to see what that looks like with this coaching staff and this organization, because in my opinion, we didn't see a lot of coordination from Doug Peterson in the last 2 years. It's not a slight, it's not a slap at him or anything. We just didn't see it. There are plays that we had success with early on in the game, and we never ever came back to those plays again. It's not about, you being a genius as an offensive coordinator calling plays. It's about you setting up your offense to be as proficient as it can be by coordinating plays, run to pass. Okay. When you do that, then you can get what you want. But when you make yourself one-dimensional, you got problems on your hands. So, we'll see where that goes. All right. Victor Parker wants to know, where do we stand with linebackers? I think we're probably in pretty good shape with linebackers. You got the kid from Minnesota that they brought in. I think that he's the type of player that he's a multifaceted linebacker. He can do it all. I think he can rush the passer, he can cover, he can, play the run game. I think that Alex Singleton will only get better this year. I think you got a bunch of young players that should be hungry coming into, this season with Sean Bradley and Davion Taylor. And you also have, a guy in TJ Edwards, who's had an opportunity to play, in the last year. I think he got injured last year, but they've got enough there to create major competition. And I think just as long as, you have competition, they'll be okay. But then again, there are a lot of good veterans that are still out there that are going to be there throughout the first 2 or 3 weeks of preseason. So if the need is there, if the need arises that you need to go and sign a linebacker, I think that there's a couple of guys out there that you can actually bring in. And that would be, that's the route that I would take. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I don't know how you guys felt about, Adam's take on quarterbacks and his take on, the 3 first-round draft picks. Eric says here, asking price is 3 first-rounders, which is a price, will they likely settle for? My thing is, you don't know what you can get unless you ask for it. So the Houston Texans are going to ask for the moon. If they can get it, good. If they can't, then, they'll meet somewhere in the middle. I just don't, I'm not of the opinion, especially if I'm the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm not giving up 3 first-round draft picks and all the cap space that I'm going to have next year, for one player, for a quarterback, okay? Because you have the opportunity next year to severely improve your football team, whether that means that you have to use your first first-round pick on a quarterback, and another year for him to develop, that's one thing. But you got 3 first-round draft picks, where you can solidify, an aging defensive line. Maybe you go defensive tackle, maybe you go defensive end in one of those first picks. Maybe, you look at, how to create more depth and go after a starter on the offensive line to create more competition in for the years coming up. From what I understand, this may be Jason Kelce's last year. And then on top of it, if the Eagles, play well, if they fare well towards the end of the season, it may wind up being, Philadelphia may wind up being a destination where players want to come and want to play. If a guy like Jalen Hurts flourishes, if all of a sudden this defense, has, a halfway decent season, maybe it's looked upon as a place where players want to come and players want to be a part of something that's being built and something that's on the rise. So with 70+ million in cap space, why would you waste that by giving away 3 picks, okay, and the ability to really heal and get better right away? I get the sentiment, and I understand, you need a legitimate quarterback, to win, a Super Bowl, but I don't think I'm in that group of people that feel like, you got to mortgage the farm to go out and find your guy. Patrick Mahomes is a difference maker. Aaron Rodgers is a difference maker. Tom Brady has always been a difference maker. Is it hard to find those types of guys? Absolutely. But, I'm just not willing to mortgage all of those things to be able to, go and get one. If I can build everything else around within my roster and I can make all of those other positions strong, then maybe we can do enough in the running game and with play calling, to help a young quarterback or help any quarterback be able to manage the game. The only time that becomes problematic is when you get into the playoffs. You get into the playoffs, then the great defensive coordinators, great defensive minds, they're going to take away the things that you do best, and they're going to put the stress on your quarterback to make him, beat you. So if you got a quarterback that doesn't really throw it that well, then they're going to stack the box. They're going to make they're going to shut down the running game, and they're going to force you, to throw the ball. But that's where, as a coach, you've got to stand your ground and say, you know what, we're going to keep hitting it up in here, even if we're only getting 2.5 yards a carry. Whether that's a first down run or a second down run, because now what you do is you send a message to the defense that we're not going to give up on the run. We're going to continue to try to run the ball. And when we're not, if we're not successful, that is not going to take away from our play action pass. So it's just really trying to figure all of that out and, how that fits. Victor, I don't know whether God actually said it or not, but, where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's a lie, there's always a little truth. And where there's a little truth, there's always a little lie. So I'm not sure, but just the insinuation, that he wants to be paid in that manner, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. You've never been a starter. You've never been a Pro Bowler. You've never been a 1,000-yard receiving tight end. You've never been double-digit touchdown tight end. And you're making demands? That just rubs me the wrong way. I'm sorry. Whether he said it or not, because it came from somewhere. Somebody didn't just throw it out there. Theodore Nicholas wants to know, he's making a proclamation. You can win a Super Bowl with an average quarterback and a top 5 defense, to my point. We've seen the upper echelon of quarterbacks the last couple of years really dominate the landscape as far as Super Bowls are concerned. But I will remind you guys, as paltry as, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense made Patrick Mahomes look last year, and we can talk about, they both of their tackles were out, and listen, everybody gets paid to play, and you're on the biggest stage. Nobody's feeling sorry for Patrick Mahomes and his tackles, or the fact that maybe he was a little gimpy. But you go over on the other side of the ball, Tom Brady only threw for 200 yards. Consider that. Is the quarterback position really that important? He played against the Eagles in Super Bowl 52. He threw for 505 yards and lost. Tom Brady did. He just won a Super Bowl this year, throwing for, 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Why? Because they ran the ball. Play action was alive, and they had Gronk running all over the place. I think Gronk scored 2 touchdowns, had 2 touchdown receptions himself. So to your point, Theodore, maybe you can. I just don't think that the mindset of the NFL is at that point anymore. I think everybody really believes that you have to have an elite level quarterback in order to win. But until someone wins one with an average quarterback and a top 5 defense, kind of recently or presently, then we're going to be in one of these situations where the thought is, hey, you got to have an elite level quarterback at all times in order to win a Super Bowl, that is. All right. Jay, you just on fire today. Forget Cox in my trade. We can get draft capital for him. Hey, listen, he's nearing the end of his contract, and I think, when you got a guy that's averaging about $20 million a year, and he's gone to the Pro Bowl the last 4 or 5 years in a row, do you think he's going to be okay with taking less money at this point in time to stay here if there's another team that's willing to, have him come in and pay him the type of money that he's been making? The Eagles may be in the unenviable place of, needing to say goodbye to Fletcher Cox and packaging him up before this season is over and moving him for, of course, if whoever they decide to move him to, will agree to, extend his contract, once the trade is consummated. But you got all this draft capital going in the next year. Why not up it? I love Fletcher. I think that, he's a heck of a player when he wants to play. My problem with Fletcher is, there are times where he doesn't really look like he loves the game. And he doesn't look like he really wants to play. And I just think, in this era of competition that Nick Sirianni is trying to create, that you got to have guys on your roster. I mean, you look at a guy like Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham is an effort guy. He's a guy that he's going to give you everything that he has. If it's a crucial situation, Brandon Graham's on the field. I can't say that about Fletcher Cox. There's been times on 3rd and 1, 4th and goal, 3rd and goal, and I look and the camera scans the sideline, and Fletcher Cox is standing on the sideline drinking Gatorade. I have a problem with that. You're supposed to be the team's best player. You're the team's highest paid defensive player. And we're talking about one of the most critical times of the game. And you're standing on the sideline drinking Gatorade when your presence is needed on the field. I got a problem with that. So, if there's value there to be had, I have no problem with the Eagles actually making that move. Let's see what else we got here. Jimmy Allen, there you go again, brother. He said, I think Hightower is a sleeper. I'm really wanting to see how he improves this year. I think this competition thing is going to bode well for both John Hightower and Quez Watkins. I think that there's a lot of players. Listen, you got 3 wide receivers that were drafted last year. So you got, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, John Hightower. You got Devontae Smith that was drafted this year. You got Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham. I know I'm missing 1 or 2 other guys, but I know they got some guys who have signed via free agency. The Eagles, in all likelihood, probably aren't going to keep 5 wide receivers. JJ Arcega-Whiteside. He most certainly may be on the outside looking in. But you have all of these wide receivers. At some point in time, these guys are going to have to bite the bullet and make a stance. You have to show this coaching staff that, hey, I'm the real deal. It's really all about separating yourself. And how does John Hightower separate himself in a field of wide receivers that are just, this so vast? Every rep is going to count. Every block is going to count. Understanding where you fit and where you go and how to run it and catching the ball and, the effort after the catch and, blocking for your teammates down the field. And all of those things are going to play a major role in, where these guys fit and how they fit. Because if you're doing all of those things, even if you're not a guy that's in the top 5, hey, there's a special team spot, which buys you time as a wide receiver to continue to develop your skill set. And hey, you never know. We've seen it over the last 2 or 3 years. How many guys have didn't make the 53-man roster, but wound up on the practice squad. And by the time we got to the midpoint, was getting significant playing time. So I'm looking for John Hightower to do some good things, but I have a feeling that as well as I talked about the competition on the offensive and defensive line, it's really going to be intriguing to watch the competition at the wide receiver position because, there's limited spots for a bunch of guys. Okay. I think we got time for one more here, I think. One more, looking for a good one. Almost You guys are fierce talking about the Cowboys, huh? I had two in a row. Victor Parker says Brain Smith in is going to open it up for Fulgham. Travis Fulgham will be the number 2 wide receiver. By Dave Collins, interesting comment because I felt like the Eagles and Doug Peterson made a major mistake last year by taking Travis Fulgham out of the mix and out of the picture. I thought that they arrested his development by taking him out and putting Alshon Jeffrey in just because, they thought he was healthy and what they were paying him. They wanted to get something out of it. The season wasn't going anywhere. The Eagles weren't making the playoffs, so why not give all the reps, to, these young guys? I think Travis Fulgham has tremendous upside. The problem for Travis is that, they've pretty much, they've solidified a lot of, probably the X and the Z positions, with first round draft picks the last 2 years. Greg Ward in the middle, he's going to be there. So, I mean, what do you do? I've heard that, I've heard some chatter that, Rager, is lining up in the slot a little bit, which maybe opens up, a X or a Z position for Travis Fulgham. I just want to see how he finds his confidence, after what transpired last year. Because a lot of times what happens with these young guys, he was just finding his stride. He was just finding his confidence level. And all of a sudden the rug got pulled out from under him. The question is, how does he recover from that and move forward going into this season? All right. Hey, guys, that's it for the show this week. I want to thank my guest, Adam Kaplan. I want to thank you guys for tuning in as always. We'll be back next week with another show as we break down what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, talk about what's going on around the rest of the NFL. Pray that, all the players stay healthy and safe. And, it's like I always tell you guys, be good to each other and take care of each other. But most importantly, make sure you love each other. I'll see you guys back here next week. Peace out.